You're listening to Big World Network.
Delroy Versus the Yshtari, Season 2, Episode 6, Bye Bye Bot. Written and read by Baron Stevens. After I entered the access code to Stella's ship, the door didn't open. Instead, the keypad made a buzzing sound for a few seconds. I knew I had entered it right, but I tried it again and got the same result. But puny little locks are no match for the skills of Delroy Higston. I reached into my pocket for my mini security device. At first, my hand found one of the plant seeds. It reminded me of how hungry I felt. I started to pull it out for a quick snack until I realized that I was going to my death anyway, so why bother? I searched past it and found the security device. At least they hadn't searched me before they threw me in the brig. With my normal expert skill, I had the security kit connected to the keypad so that it could determine the new code. There it was. 482731. My hand paused over the keypad before entering the numbers. Did I really want to surrender to the Yshtari? I was sure my death would be horrible. My hand started to fall away from the keypad until I thought of Trina and the other ladies. About the terror the Yshtari put them through, the horror that the men would be going through down on the planet now, the lives that would be lost in a senseless war. A war that I had started. My resolve returned, and I entered the numbers. The door slid open. "Just what do you think you're doing?" Stella screeched from behind me. I yelped and spun around, dropping the security device. "Stella, my sweet." Her eyes smoldered at me, and her hands were on her hips. "Don't give me that my sweet garbage. You were trying to escape. In my ship." She shook her head and folded her arms. "And I thought you were better than that." "I am. No, I'm not. I'm trying to find a way to stop this war." Her lips stretched thin, and her nostrils flared as she took deep breaths. Her beautiful eyes had become as hard as diamond drill bits that bore through my soul. All I could do was stand there. 3 Marines came running up the corridor behind Stella. She turned to them. "Make sure this dunglehead stays out of my ship. If he puts one foot on board, shoot him." "Yes, ma'am," one of the Marines said. She looked back at me. "I should have you thrown back in the brig, but I do owe you my life. Consider us even. Now, get out of my sight before I change my mind." She spat the last bit out with a contained fury and spun around, stomping up the corridor. I took a step toward her. "Stella!" The 3 Marines stood there, glaring at me. I waved at them. "Hi, guys. How's it going?" When they didn't answer, I said, "Well, it was nice meeting you. I guess I'll be heading on. Have a nice day." Once I had my back to them, I grimaced and scampered off. Now, not only had I started a war, but I'd also embittered the woman of my dreams. I wasn't sure which felt worse. All I knew was that both felt awful. I don't know how long I wandered the ship. Metal corridors turned into one long blur as I tried to figure a way out of the messes I'd caused. There only seemed like one thing I could do. Surrender to General Tyson and have him turn me over to the Yshtari. Maybe that would convince Stella that I wasn't so bad after all. I had become so lost in the giant battleship that I had to ask for directions on how to find the bridge again. When I arrived, General Tyson stood in the middle of the room, rubbing his mustache and studying the Yshtari fleet depicted on his tactical screen. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" he asked one of his lieutenants. "It will still be hours, sir," the man answered. "So, can we outrun them, General?" I asked as I stopped next to him. "No, and they're following just outside of our blaster range." He didn't turn to look at me, so he must not have realized who I was. "General, I have a proposition for you." He turned to look at me. When he saw who I was, his mustache quivered under his snarl. "Unless it involves you, an airlock, and no pressure suit, I don't want to hear it." "It kind of does." I swallowed before I blurted out the next part. "I think you should turn me over to the Yshtari to get them to stop this war." He continued to scowl at me as he seemed to consider my plan. Finally he said, "Nothing would please me more, but that won't work. Now, unless you have something useful to say, get off my bridge." I was about to argue, but the look he gave me froze the marrow in my bones. I slowly backed away. Ah, there you are, sir, Mink said from where he stood next to the communications console. I stepped over to him. So what's the poop? Why won't you let me surrender? Well, sir, it seems that the Yshtari really don't care that much about the injured members of the royal family, nor the damage to their royal ship. It appears that they had a feast on the injured before heading toward us. Then why are they still wanting to go to war if they don't care? Because, sir, they have decided that humans are delicious. They think their whole species should be able to enjoy, how do I put this? Your juiciness. Really? Yes, sir. I let out a whoop of joy. This is fantastic! So this war is not my fault! Hot dog! Sir, aren't you concerned for the human race? Well, yeah, a little. General Tyson spun around. Higston, off my bridge before I have you arrested again. I don't want to see your face unless it's in front of a firing squad. I began to feel like my presence was no longer wanted, so I turned to Minx. Let's go. I can't, sir. I gave you an order. Come. Sorry, sir. This is most embarrassing. You see, I no longer belong to you. What? Miss Trina told Miss Stella my passcode and said that I now belong to her. Miss Stella wasted no time putting a new code in. Stella, who had been leaning against the back wall and glaring at me the whole time, began to smile wickedly. I said to her, You can't do that. You're only to get him if I surrender to the Yshtari, and I didn't. He's still mine. There were no such stipulations when you told Trina the passcode. Besides, it serves you right for trying to steal my ship. I told you I wasn't trying to steal your ship. I was just going to borrow... I stopped because I knew I was defeated. Would it help if I said I was sorry? No. Stella turned toward Minx. I order you to tell Delroy that he's a doofus. I most sincerely apologize, sir, but you're a doofus. Stella's smile grew wider. And a dunklehead, too. And, sir, you are a dunklehead. Stella tapped her index finger on her pursed lips before saying, And don't call him sir anymore. He doesn't deserve it. Instead, generate a random insult to replace where you would normally say it. Yes, Miss Stella. Minx turned back to me. Scuzzbag, I would suggest you leave the bridge while you still can do it on your own 2 legs. He smiled. I looked back and forth between them before I spun about and stormed off the bridge. A few minutes before, my heart was broken, but now I was angry. She took my ship, my bot, and left me with nothing. The only thing I could think to do was to head down to the mess hall to drown my sorrows and rages in food. The 2 helpings of synth tuna on toast didn't help. It tasted like melted plastic mixed with battery acid. I sat there at a table and glowered at the wall when Trina entered along with several others from the compound. She had been crying. The look on her face brought me out of my self-pity. Trina, what's wrong? She stopped when she saw me and sat down across the table. I just found out that we can't go back and get James. She looked down at the table and clenched a tissue in her fist. Her lip quivered as she said, I don't even know if he's still alive. Trina broke down into sobs. I put my hand on hers and patted it. There, there. Okay, not the most genius thing to say, but comforting distraught people isn't something in my skill set. The only thing I could do that would really help her feel better was to go rescue her husband. Then it hit me. After all, I had nothing to lose. I took her hand in both of mine and tried to ignore the snot oozing from the tissue. Trina, don't worry. I'll go find out what happened to your husband. I'll either bring him back or die trying. She let out one last sob. What? How? I'm going to take the Rutherford's revenge and go back to the planet to rescue the men. But that will be suicide. I can't ask you to do that. You're not. I'm volunteering. It's about time I did something worthwhile with my useless life. Besides, I'm guessing that almost all of the Yshtari left the planet to chase the Ulysses. It should be unguarded right now. This will be my best chance. It might also win me some new points with Stella. I'm going with you. She started to stand up. No, I have to do this alone. To this day, I have no idea where I found the resolve to take up that mission, but as I stood up and ran toward the Rutherford's revenge, I felt a purpose I'd never felt before.
has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on bigworldnetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.